There we go.
Hey, Mike, you want to give your review?
Okay. Yeah. Number one, I'm glad I'm here tonight. If you don't know, I called in saying I was going to miss the meeting because I had committed to moderating a political debate here in Kansas City, and one of the two candidates got COVID, so they put off the debate till a few days from now. Anyway,
Glad you're here.
Yeah, man, me too. So the movie I picked was "The Russians Are Coming." The Russians Are Coming. Part of this came from Sanders, actually, because earlier this summer, or maybe it was in the spring, I think he picked a picture that had Alan Arkin in it, and I always remembered that Arkin was in "The Russians Are Coming." The Russians Are Coming, and I thought, well, I haven't seen that in a long time. So I thought I would select that the next time my pick came around. This thing was made for $3.9 million back in 1964 and 65. I read where it earned 21 million. That's an astonishing return on the money for those days, but it was a very popular film. It was selected for Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay from Another Medium, Best Editing, and Arkin was up for Best Actor. None of them won Oscars for it, but they were nominated, and it was pretty highly thought of at the time. Interestingly enough, if you look over on Bill's backdrop here, you can see in Cyrillic the name of the ship, which translates to octopus, which I didn't know until I read about it. And interestingly enough, the guy who was the captain of that ship in the movie, Theodore Bikel, was a fluent Russian speaker. Alan Arkin knew some Russian, and even more interesting than that was Brian Keith, the guy that played the town marshal, was also fluent in Russian, although he never spoke it during the movie. The other interesting things about it was this movie reminded me a lot of another movie that came out at about the same time, another ensemble comedy called "It's a Mad, 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 Mad World." For a couple of different reasons. Number one, it had an ensemble cast. Number two, there were at least three actors that were in both these movies. Carl Reiner and Jonathan Winter and Paul Ford were in all three of those movies, and the movies were similar in the fact that it was kind of a madcap comedy with based on misinformation and sort of fish out of the water sort of scenario for it. And they both ended with climaxes that put some of their characters in precarious positions. In the Russians, it was obviously the kid hanging from the top of the belfry, and in Mad, 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 Mad World, it was this hook and ladder that was flinging people all over the God's Green Acre in that downtown. Pretty funny scene. The other thing that I've learned about this movie was, number one, when it came out in 1965, 66, this was at the height of Carl Reiner's fame for the Dick Van Dyke Show. The Dick Van Dyke Show ran from 61 to 66, and this came out in 65 and 66. And if I remember correctly, the Dick Van Dyke Show left the air on its own accord. It was never canceled. They pulled the plug on it before anybody canceled it. And Reiner wrote, produced, directed a lot of Dick Van Dykes. He also played a writer in it on the Dick Van Dyke Show. He plays a playwright of musical comedies in The Russians Are Coming. And at one time, I'm told that Reiner tried to pitch basically the Dick Van Dyke Show concept with him as the star 2 or 3 years earlier than the Dick Van Dyke Show. They retooled it a bit, added a couple of cast members, and Reiner wrote it rather than starring in it. Although, of course, he was the irascible Alan Brady during the Van Dyke shows as the star of the show that those guys were writing for. So anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. There were several Cold War movies that came out in this particular period of time. This is the only one I can remember of that was a flat out comedy, save for, now when I think about it, Dr. Strangelove. But there was Failsafe and 7 Days of May. And so, I was reading somewhere where some people will include, especially the early James Bond movies, has Cold War movies. And yeah, the Russians are all over that, and Spectre and those sorts of folks. And, the testament to the Russians are coming is that it holds up now, over a half century later, as as a fun film to watch with some interesting characters, well played, with a good plot line. So I enjoyed it a lot, and I hope you guys did too. I will say one other thing about it. Paul Ford, the guy that played the local militiaman, is one of my favorite character actors because he plays basically the same damn character in every bit that he's at, where he's the blowhard authority figure, and he pulls that off really well in every movie I've seen. And I think he's probably best known for being Mayor Shin in The Music Man, but Mayor Shin and then the militia captain here, Fenwick or whatever his name was, is basically a same, different version of the same character, a blowhard authority figure. And, and he was also in the control tower in Mad World as a out of control blowhard authority figure as well. So anyway, I liked the movie. I hope everybody had seen it in the past. I hope you enjoyed it again this time. And that's what I've got.
Very nice. I guess I saw it when I was 13 years old. I remember going to the theater, so it was a lot different then. I mean, it was my memory was ensemble cast, Jonathan Winters. At the time when I was 13, Jonathan Winters was, he was an icon already in comedy. So I think he was one of the big characters. I had no idea that like Alan Arkin would end up being one of my favorite actors of all time. I didn't remember him being in there at all. So yeah, that was a fun movie to watch again and review. I enjoyed it.
One of the reviews I read, they called the Russians that came off the boat the Keystone Comrades. That makes sense, with all the things, the shenanigans that were going on with the vehicles and all. But to me, I picked up on this just right away, that this movie was the game that used to play of telephone. Mm-hmm. Remember, somebody whispers into somebody else's ear and it just, explodes. Exploded. And this definitely did that. It was just a comedy of errors that was going on. A perfect game of telephone on here. And behind Jeff is our recalcitrant horse, which he finally catches up. Ben Blue finally catches up to him, and you get the idea he didn't come in until the very end, but it has a Paul Revere angle, and the title refers to that. Instead of the British are coming, it's the Russians are coming. So, and then Carl Reiner as Walt Whitaker. So too bad Gary isn't here tonight.
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
to defend himself. But that precocious child of theirs, Pete, he was all over everything going on, and bless his heart, nobody paid attention to him. They just ignored him. So
I read that kid is like a dentist or something in Colorado.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
really. So I want to point out to you all, I don't know if you can see it or not, but the photo behind me is an actual photo of, the harbor in Gloucester that I took 7 years
Oh,
with all the boats. And, that's where they got the boats and then made the
Sure,
parade escort the sub out. But yeah, when I saw that on there, I went, oh, I've been there. Although they say it took place on the West Coast, but still.
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
But-
supposedly one of the most famous quotes is when Alan Arkin is talking to Carl Reiner, and he says, always I am saying goodbye to you, and always I am meeting you again. They couldn't seem to get apart from each other. They were running into each other. So anyway, fun movie, Michael.
Yeah. So Mike, I had never seen it.
Really?
So this was just like this opened up a whole thing for me because, I had a lot of different thoughts. Of course, I thought, I mean, it was that slapstick kind of fun that happened like in a mad world and all that. It was, I mean, there's that dated, but at the same time, I was laughing. I loved Alan Arkin. One of my favorite scenes, and maybe you would when they were singing "It's a Long Way from Tipperary" in Russian. I was dying. I was dying when they were singing that, because, that song is like so typically Irish. And when they were singing it in Russian, I was just dying. The one thing that what bothered me is that, what's his name? Theodore Bikel, right? Theodore Bikel, supposedly, he was brought into this because he spoke Russian so well. Great. But why, at least in my version, there was no subtitles. So I couldn't get the nuance of Theodore Bikel acting because he was talking Russian. I mean, I you kind of get it because of you can kind of get the idea of it, but I would have loved if they would have put the Russian subtitles, I mean the English subtitles in the Russian, because that whole, I don't know, was maybe 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes of that whole beginning where they're talking Russian in the boat and the captain's talking, and I was like, what are they saying? Because if that's the reason why he was put into that cast as that character, I just kind of wanted to know what he was saying. I mean, that was the one thing. I love Carl Reiner, always loved him, and you are right, Mike, that he actually did the first Dick Van Dyke show. It was called oh, I can't remember now, but it wasn't called the Dick Van Dyke Show. But anyway, he played Rob Petrie, and it didn't go that well. So that's when they brought Dick Van Dyke in, and then Dick Van Dyke got the show and all that. The thing that I found and it brought back so many good memories, is that when I worked at ABC, there was a point where, and of course I'm in the local news, and there was a point where I could see that I was changing. I would walk outside, because, local news, it's like what bleeds, who's been raped, what's been going on in the local area. And I would walk out, and I knew that something was happening to me. That's why I got out of news, quite frankly. because I would walk outside and I'd start looking over my shoulder, and because I was getting all this stuff. So in my office, and this was so strange, in my office, because we had, ABC, NBC, and CBS in the office playing all the time, and I was working at ABC, instead of getting fed all that stuff all the time, I changed the channels and I put Dick Van Dyke, God, I can't remember, but I would put 3 different comedy programs on, because I knew that I was getting so I was just changing. I was so concerned about being, raped or hit or whatever. And so when seeing Carl Reiner and thinking about Dick Van Dyke, it was just a great show. And even Paul Ford, one of my favorite character actors, that has been that same character. But when you see Paul Ford, and I think he was in vaudeville. I might be wrong about that, but I think he was in vaudeville before TV. I think. Anyway, I enjoyed it. I'm glad that I saw it, because I had never seen it before, and I'm glad that you I'm just glad that you said it, because again, I had never seen it, and I'm really glad that I did. So,
Donna, one of the things that I was sort of waiting for when you're talking about the Russian in the first 10 minutes of it, I was expecting subtitles as well. It's been years since I've seen the movie. And then the other thing I thought, and it was just because I'd seen this movie recently, in the movie The Hunt for the Red October, in the Russian submarine, in their first scenes, they start speaking Russian, and then they cut.
right.
They
And they're
cut,
speaking English.
and then they're suddenly speaking English, and you understand what's going on. I thought it would have helped too to have some subtitles to, if you couldn't figure out what the problem was, if they were running aground, and
Yeah.
you weren't looking at the depth meter, whatever they call that thing. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have an idea really what the problem was until they ran aground.
And Bikel is such a good actor that I thought, boy, they just didn't take advantage of him being such a good actor. I know he spoke Russian, but when you don't know what the context is, it's hard to get where he's coming from. And I would have liked subtitles. Yeah.
I felt like I agreed when I first started watching it. The periscope was up and he's looking around. I couldn't figure out what he was looking at, because it just looked like he was looking at the land or something. But when they went back and said the commandant or the admiral, whatever he was, wanted to see America,
Right.
I felt like when they gave that little bit of context later on, it explained everything. And it kind of, the fact that you couldn't tell exactly what they were saying, they did have gauges going in the wrong direction, and they had him just going crazy looking through the periscope and everything. I felt like that kind of, they acted it out enough that you didn't have to know what they were saying completely. So I thought they did that pretty well. And that's kind of consistent with the whole slapstick capability. You don't have to, it could be a silent movie in a lot of ways, and you'd still think it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I thought I was very refreshed by this movie, because it just reacquainted me with the fact that we take ourselves so damn seriously now all the time. And these guys really just let her rip. They, nothing was out of bounds. And I know Saturday Night Live does some of that stuff, and there are certain people who still do comedy like that, but it seems like things like this don't really show up very much anymore. And I thought that was wonderful. Also, the massive cast of great actors. I think if somebody wanted to go back and study who were the comedians from those years, they could just watch that movie and write down the names of the different people, and they would have a pretty complete list. So it was kind of a showcase that way. Also about Paul Ford, I read somewhere in his biographic stuff about this that he came very late to the movies, and I don't know if he had an earlier career, but he was just perfect for the kind of character he was, and he got right in and took off. So I don't know how old he was when he became a movie actor, but he didn't do that early in his life. I thought that was pretty interesting, because not a lot of people break in late.
I just saw a thing that said he was like the general on Sergeant Bilko. And
Yeah,
he was 54 in that, so that's a long
Yeah.
time ago. And that's
Yeah.
TV.
It was Phil Silvers.
Yeah,
yeah.
he was a lot.
Yeah, I think I remember reading briefly that he started in radio, maybe not vaudeville, but
Oh, you might be right,
radio.
Mike. It might be
Um,
radio. It was something prior to the movies that he was, yeah. Yeah, I can't remember, but I remember hearing it was either vaudeville or it was radio, and a lot of the vaudeville went to radio.
yeah, directly.
So, yeah.
I'm looking at his partial filmography in Wikipedia. He's got movies that go back to 1945.
Wow.
And let's see when he was born. I mean, when was Sergeant Bilko? He was born in 1901, so he was
So he was 44. When yeah.
Well,
In
then
his first
then
movie.
he could have been in vaudeville. He could have
Yeah,
very well been in
yeah.
vaudeville.
Yeah, certainly the
I'm
age.
pretty, I don't know why I know that, but and I'm not sure if I do know that, but I believe I remember hearing him about vaudeville.
If he wasn't, he should have been.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Karen, we haven't heard from you.
I was not a huge fan. It was okay. It seemed like kind of a watered down version of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which is one of my very favorite movies. And the cast, was not quite as robust as Mad, Mad, Mad. But it was still fun. I didn't mind watching it, but I wasn't as enthusiastic as the rest of you. But anything with Jonathan Winters will hold me, because I just,
Yeah, Yeah.
sort of our parents' generation's Robin Williams,
right. Right.
So, yeah. And you're talking about Jeff talking about they don't make movies like this anymore, and I agree. But that's the thing. I think the Oscars have changed. When was the last time like a true comedy really got nominated? Now it's to give to be considered for the the best picture, and it's always sort of very layered, but dramas, and you just don't see. I mean, not that it never happens, but it doesn't happen like that. I don't see a movie like that with a lot of comedians and just sort of madcap, that kind of thing. I don't see that even getting a nod at the Oscars these days.
Well, I don't think ever. I mean, since the 20s, I don't think there's been a comedy nominated for Best Picture. Does any of you guys know that? I mean, I don't believe there has been a comedy ever nominated. And they didn't have until recently. Didn't they change it to like either
Annie
best
Hall
comedic
won in the
performance or
70s,
something like
and
that?
that was a comedy, but it.
What was it?
Annie Hall was a comedy, and it.
Oh yeah,
won.
that's true. That is true.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and that one. But
Yeah.
it's rare. It's very rare
that was
that you
my
have
point, yeah.
comedies as Best Picture. And usually it's comedy and yeah. But you're right. Yeah, Annie Hall. Again,
Yeah,
one of my
you-
favorites.
Yeah, you can't draw many parallels between this movie and Annie Hall.
No, I
No.
was just making the point about comedies. Yeah. No.
Hey, which came first? This movie or Mad, 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 Mad World? I don't know.
I don't know.
They're both from
They were
the mid 60s, but I don't know which was first.
I don't either.
Whatever.
I know
I don't have
Bill
my
will figure it
phone- I
out.
don't have my phone handy, so.
Mad World is 1963.
Yeah.
Oh, it was before this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I like I said, it wasn't like, oh, you know, somebody had to hold, now you hold the gun on me kind of a thing. No, I did watch it, but yeah, I wasn't a huge fan.
Well, yeah, it was dated. That's kind of how I felt. It just felt dated, but interesting. And wasn't Alan Arkin nominated for Best Actor or something?
Best Actor. This was his first major role. He had been, I believe he had been in some other things, but this was the first time he was a major player.
Did anybody
Yeah, he
watch
was good.
the trailer for Russians Are Coming, because it wasn't like what you might think of as just sort of showing the highlights. It did have some highlights, but it was like an interview with Alan Arkin as the Russian, saying, "I've been to America. Let me show you." You know,
No,
kind of fun. Yeah, you haven't seen that. It's only about a couple of minutes.
Oh,
but
yeah.
yeah, it's the trailer for The Russians Are Coming.
Interesting.
Kind of unique.
Interesting. Yeah.
I didn't see it. I did notice that the little kid who got stuck up there on the roof, wasn't that
Yeah.
Jimmy from Family Affair? I mean, was
Yes, it was. Yeah, I noticed that too.
Brian
And of course,
Keith,
Brian Keith
do you
is
suppose,
the
you suppose that's where he
sheriff or whatever. Yeah.
him as an acting talent and recruited him for
Yeah.
Family Affair? Because
Yeah.
he's pretty little. He was like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be that same time frame.
yeah. I mean, it was kind of I was sitting there going, how did they get him up on that hook? You know, that little kid. I mean, I'm sure there was a trick there, but he did look like he was hanging on a hook.
Yeah.
But that was pretty.
Yeah. Before CG. Yeah.
No children were harmed in the making of this movie.
Yeah, but they scared the daylights out of one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the magic of the movies.
Yeah, the magic of the movies. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he was probably hanging on a hook about 2 feet over the ground. So
Yeah.
yeah. So we all got
Yeah.
along. That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
yeah.
So today, I guess we couldn't make a movie where we got along with the Russians. So that would be impossible.
Oh.
Oh man, they'd be all over that ship so fast. Because there'd be an early warning thing that they were in the neighborhood and they'd be watching them like a hawk.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's none of
Yes.
that. Oh, we just drifted into your island, you know, sorry. Thought we'd drop by.
You're right. Yeah.
Well,
Probably unrealistic
I-
even for then, but still.
I had a friend of mine, still a friend of mine, who was in the submariner service for the U.S. Navy, and some of the stories he tells about the little cat and mouse and chicken games that the Soviets and the United States played in the North Atlantic in the 80s are something right out of a Tom Clancy novel.
Really.
Yeah, he said it was a regular occurrence.
Wow.
That stuff going on with China and the Philippines right now is kind of reminiscent of that, but it's on the surface instead of submarines.
Yeah, there was a piece on 60 Minutes about that just last night of Chinese Coast Guard vessels ramming Philippine vessels in disputed water.
Wow. I didn't see that.
So what's your favorite Alan Arkin movie? I know the one that I first really knew who Alan Arkin was Wait Until Dark.
Yeah, I was Bill, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, that's when, but that's not a comedy, that's for sure.
Not a comedy. But I mean,
No.
Little Miss Sunshine is what we watched.
And
Sunshine.
Little
before.
Miss Sunshine, he's
Good, yeah.
wonderful.
did he win an
But
award?
Wait Until Dark, oh my God, he scared the hell out of me. Yeah,
And then
but
he was
that
in,
makes a good actor. You know, he can do either. He can go from one to the other. Yeah, he's just good.
he was in the Kaminsky Method, wasn't he? He was
Yes.
Yes, he was so good in that.
curmudgeonly friend, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the
Michael
actor that played
Douglas.
his daughter was very good in that show too. But I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Wasn't he in Catch-22?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yes,
I
he
don't
was.
know.
You know, they don't have, oh yeah, I guess they do have it.
Was he Yossarian?
It was Rosarian, yeah.
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 So I remember Sanders introduced me to that book. So there's another connection to our friend.
One of Bob's favorite books.
What,
Yeah, Sanders too. Sanders said he would go back and reread that frequently.
what's the name of the book?
Catch-22.
Catch-22.
Oh, Catch-22.
Yeah.
I am looking at his filmography. Argo,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love Darko. Yeah.
Marley and Me, Get Smart.
I'd have to go with Donna though. Wait Until Dark was a great movie. Good vehicle.
Oh
for it.
God. Yeah. He was so good.
Who's in Edward Scissorhands?
He was.
Johnny Depp.
He was? As Edward Scissorhands?
No, he was in it.
He was in it. Oh, okay.
I don't remember. Huh. Interesting.
Oh, neither. A lot of smaller movies. And so he was in Inspector Clouseau. In 1968, he played Inspector Clouseau.
Before
Wasn't
Peter
it-
Sellers? Or
Really?
after?
Well, I mean,
It wasn't a Pink Panther movie though, was it? It was
1968.
Yeah.
So I don't know when all the Pink Panther movies came out, but said he did. Right after Wait Until Dark. Right after that. Wait Until
Really?
Dark was 1967. So only 1 year after the Russians are coming, he got the part. I thought it was interesting about Carl Reiner. I was looking through his Wikipedia page. He writes, does a lot of writing, fiction and nonfiction.
Oh gosh, yes.
Got a
He's
huge,
done so much. Yeah.
it
I
looks
mean,
like
he started with not Ed Sullivan. What was the other?
Shows,
Jack Benny?
something like that.
Thank you. Shows. Right. Right. He started there. And it was he was like the reporter on the street, you know, and he was with
Mel
oh God, I
Brooks.
hate when this happens. You know, the guy from Young Frankenstein.
Mel Brooks.
Thank you. Yeah, Karen. Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just been phenomenal
2,000-year-old.
for years. And then his
And his
son,
char-
of course, has kind of continued it with, you know, Rob Reiner did
All in the family.
as good, not as
All in
good
the
as it
Family.
gets, but the one where Meg Ryan is,
Oh, yeah.
when Harry met Sally.
Sally.
Yeah, that was Rob Reiner. Yeah.
And then Princess Bride was Rob Reiner.
Yes, Princess Bride, another great one. Yeah. He's done, yeah, both of them have done so much. Actually, he did that one, I think I recommended it a while back about Gene Wilder. You know, the documentary on Gene Wilder, Mel Brooks was in it. And that was so good too. I mean, yeah, they were just all so good. You know, I wrote down all these things that I was going to tell you that I had watched and liked or disliked or whatever, but I was going to recommendations. Do you think I can find the friggin' notebook that I put in? No. So I'll have to wait till next week until I find it, I guess. But
So are we ready for recommendations?
yeah, well, that's what, yeah.
It was a fun one for me, Mike. I liked it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who's got the movie next week?
I'm gonna take it for, should be Mike Matson, but since he's on the road, he doesn't know if he'll be able to have, connection to do this. So I told him I would step up, so I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Greg, we're gonna take a trip. Here we go again, across the pond. We're going to go to Paris in 1963, and we're going to solve a mystery with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. It's called Charade.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Well, what's not to love about Cary Grant?
Oh, I'm telling you, girl.
I know, I know.
And Audrey's just
And she's gorgeous. Yeah.
physically beautiful. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, Charade.
Was that a biggie? Was it like win a lot of Academy Awards and all?
Oh
well-known
my
movie.
God. Oh, you've never seen it,
Uh-uh.
Bill? You've never seen it?
Nope.
Oh,
You'll
wow.
recognize
You're in for a treat.
music.
You're going to like it.
Yeah, Henry Mancini music. You'll
Mhm.
recognize that when you hear it, and yeah, so it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot more really good actors in it. James Coburn is in it, and I don't remember the names of the other people. You're going, oh yeah, I remember that.
What year was that? Do you remember?
1963. 63.
63. God.
I think
We're trying
that's
to watching all movies with no cell phones.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
it's great. So, that's my pick. We'll discuss it next week.
Oh, that's a
It'll-
good one.
Good.
It'll be
Yeah,
fun.
it's good.
Thank you.
I was watching a couple of old Soprano episodes last week, and everybody had flip phones, but no iPhones.
Yeah. Interesting, Mike. I had never seen The Sopranos. I had heard everything about it, never had seen it. And then finally I said, okay, I'm going to watch it. And I literally binge watched it. And I think, how many seasons were there? Like 12 or something? I mean, it was
Five
a
or
huge
six, I'm
amount of
sure.
seasons.
I think it's
And
more.
I literally was up until like 4 a.m. every night for I don't know how long. Because like any good series, for me anyway, it keeps you up. It's like, I want to know what happens. I want to know what happens. And I have a hard time going, well, I can wait till tomorrow to know what happens. So, and I loved it. I didn't realize how good it was until, I saw it, because I didn't think I'd like it. I'd say,
Did you do
mafia.
that recently? Did you just do that recently?
Yeah. Relatively recently, within the last 6 or 8 months. Yeah.
Would you believe I've never watched it?
It's really good, Chris. And I
on?
was just like you. I was like, it's a
Who-
mafia. I'm not,
Who has
but
that?
it's not that. It's much more character driven than it is, mafia driven, if I can use that term. And when you really get involved with the characters, you'll see that, yeah, you end up like, that's what's so good about Gandolfino.
Yeah, a ton.
He's able to be such a rotten character and such a good character at the same time. Like everybody, got some good and some bad, and that's what you like about them. That's what makes him so real. He's not an angel, he's not a devil, he's kind of right there in between.
Are you saying he's not a devil in?
Well, he is, but
Sopranos?
he also has these qualities that, the loyalty to his friends and his family, there's a lot of good qualities that he has, I think, and not so good.
Well, he had to see a psychiatrist.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing that's good about him. How do you know, when you're that nuts and you're that crazy, and you go and you actually want to try to help yourself. And so I like that in a person, you know, they're looking at their own life and they're going, I need some help. And he goes to a psychiatrist. I think that, I don't know, I like that about him, you know,
Well,
that he was willing to do that.
I'm
He didn't
glad,
want to let anyone know, of course, but he was willing to do it.
I'm glad Mike brought it up because when we were on our trip, my son knew that HBO just put out I think it's a 2-part series on the Sopranos, the making of the Sopranos.
Oh,
And
I
it's
didn't see
really good. I mean, I only got to watch like an hour of the first episode. Have you seen it, Mike?
Yeah, I've seen it, both sides. It's 2 hours.
Yeah, and it was very interesting how they picked all the characters, the people they picked apart, you know, picked out of it, and how James Gandolfino, how he fit that part so perfectly. And what was the other thing? Oh, I thought it was interesting the picking of the guy from Bruce Springsteen's band. That guy.
Oh yeah, yes, yes.
It's like
That's so good.
when they picked him, he goes, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "I've never acted before." And they go, "Yeah, but you'd be perfect for this." And so he did it.
And he was. He
Yeah.
was the epitome. You know, I'm from Chicago, and Chicago has a lot of guys like that. You know, the guys with the, you know, they got this and but it's all the hands and so he was perfect. He was perfect, I thought.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with Van Sant last year. I think it is 60 Minutes on him, and he said his character as the consigliere to that mob family, it was easy for him to get into the character because he said it was the same sort of role that he had in the E Street Band, in the sense that he was the guy that would go to that would go to Springsteen and said, "Hey, this is working. Maybe this isn't working." Blah 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 blah. And he said he took that role that he had in the E Street Band and applied it to his character.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw that too. It's either I mean, it might have been Sunday Morning, Mike, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, maybe, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really, yeah, he was so good.
Hey, I'm
Oh,
gonna
gosh,
put,
I wish
I'm
I
gonna
could
put
find-
this the Gene Wilder thing. I'm gonna put it in as a recommendation again because I watched it.
Yeah, it was really good.
It's really good. You know, I think everybody should watch it. You know, if you want.
Oh, I know what I could recommend. Well, it's interesting. The Perfect Couple. If you guys, if you liked, there was another one. I think it was
That's
called.
I watched the first
Donald and Melania story. Is that what that is?
Yes, that was it. But this is another couple. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's an interesting. It's like what was that other one? What's it called? I hate Do Not Get Old. Oh, sorry, I forget who I'm talking to. Sorry.
Well, it's based on an
Sorry.
Ellen Hildebrand book.
We're not old.
All set on Nantucket, and this is set on Nantucket as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that helps you to remember what it is you're
Oh, hell no.
trying to
Are
compare
you
it.
kidding?
Yeah.
It drives me crazy because I wrote them all down. I went, "Ah."
I mean,
But anyway, The Perfect Couple is kind of fun because you got to watch it till the end. So it's interesting. It's
Oh, really?
interesting.
I watched the first episode. I know she wrote Seabiscuit, right?
Yes, she
Ellen.
did.
So she does a lot of
Hildebrand did. Yeah.
But
Yes.
but anyway, I got one here. Bob would have liked for sure, and it is Wyatt Earp. The
What
Life
is
of
it?
Wyatt Earp, and it's on Netflix also. And
Say it again, Bill. I didn't hear. What?
I think it's called something like The Life of Wyatt Earp or just
Oh, The
Wyatt.
Life of Wyatt Earp. Oh,
Yeah, and it's on Netflix, and it's like a 4-part series, but it goes on, it says it's narrated by Ed Harris, but it goes on from the shootout at OK Corral. They go, he goes like, you think that the shootout at the OK Corral was the end of the story? He goes, nope, it's just the beginning.
no.
And it goes on for several years after that. It's pretty interesting. But
Hey, Ellen Hildebrand did not write Seabiscuit. Seabiscuit was Laura Hillenbrand.
Oh, yeah, that's it,
writer.
Laura. That's
Ellen
right.
Hillenbrand, who writes they're mostly romances that she writes that are set on Nantucket.
okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that does, because they were not.
And when you guys said that, I was like, not that I
No,
read.
you're right. You're
But
absolutely
that's
right.
just
It was
not on
Laura
Ellen
versus
Hildebrand
Ellen.
kind of-
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Karen, who was that writer again that does the Nantucket novels?
Ellen, it's Elin, not your normal. And then Hildebrand, it's similar to the Laura Hildebrand's name, but it's
It might be Hildebrand.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she cranks out at least a novel a year, sometimes two.
Yeah, I'm sure.
She's got a lot of books.
Yeah,
going
this
back.
is nothing, it's not, how can I, it's not real deep but it's interesting. It's interesting, if nothing else.
So you thought it ended nicely? A good series?
Well, you'll see, I'm not going to, far be it from me to say anything about the ending. You have to watch it. I'm sorry. I have to watch it.
Okay.
I don't remember if I mentioned it last time, but I watched a movie called Immediate Family, which is a fanboy kind of movie about the group that was called The Section. Had 5 all-star session men from the Jackson Browne era, and they were on everybody's albums. It's really amazing how they did.
What's it called again?
I do think you brought it up.
Immediate Family.
Okay.
What's it
I
on?
think I might have.
What's it on, Jeff? Netflix?
I think Netflix, I think. Yeah. Cindy says Netflix.
Kind of similar to The Wrecking Crew, although The Wrecking Crew came, like a decade earlier.
Yeah.
Or it could have been Hulu.
We think could have been Hulu too. So it's one or the other probably.
Okay.
Well, last week it didn't make it to but I'm watching and I'm really enjoying this 4th season of Slow Horses with Gary Oldman and Kristen Scott Thomas and Jack Loudon. It's on Apple, and it's a spy, set in London, set in England. This is the 4th season there, but it's like a lot of those British serials where the season's only like 6 or maybe 8 episodes.
Right.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched it, I'd say start with the first season, and it would be pretty easy to catch up. But they're in their 4th season, so there's been 2 episodes so far, and once again it's very, very good, and Gary Oldman is just so amazing in that role.
I think the Brit box or the British movies and serials are so good. Sometimes they're just amazing to me how they're just good. The characters, the story, the writing, everything about it is just done so well. Now I haven't looked at Slow Horses, but I definitely will now.
It's on Apple. It's not I don't think you're gonna find it on BritBox at this point.
I mean Apple, but it's that same yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I'll definitely, I've got Apple too. I'll definitely go on that.
Is BritBox, is it free or is it like?
No, you got to pay for it. I'll get the 7 days free and kind of, watch everything I want to watch. And if it's really good, I'll keep it. And if I won't, then I don't. it back. But
On Slow Horses, I read the book a while ago. Do you suppose that when they go on for season after season, do they just go on past the book?
Well, short answer is I don't know, but I know the writer of the book, who's the writer that lives in Oxford. I believe he's I don't think he's writing the screenplay, but I think he is part of the process. I think, in one way, shape, or another. He's like a consultant or whatever. So I didn't read the book, so I couldn't tell you if they've gone on beyond where he ended it in the book. I don't know.
Yeah, it was good. I saw the first season, then I sort of forgot about it with all the stuff that's available. But
Yeah.
did anybody notice that how many awards that Shogun got last night? Like,
I didn't see it,
sure.
unfortunately.
yeah,
Like 17 awards or something, just phenomenal, but yeah.
I loved Shogun.
yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Billy Crudup.
I actually, my claim to fame when I lived I was there in Japan for about 6 weeks, and I was lucky enough to go to Kyoto, where a friend of mine's friend was a director, and it was I want to say Kurosawa, and it's not Kurosawa, but and he was doing Shogun type movies. So I actually got on the set. This is 1,000 years ago, but I got on the set and I took a picture with the guy that has, he has the top knot on it. He's bald, but he's got the hair coming out and he's got the Shogun outfit on. And, most Japanese men are kind of small, but he was like a bigger. So I take a picture of him. There's a picture of me and him together. And I go back to Tokyo and see my girlfriend who I'm staying with in Tokyo, and she brought all her girlfriends, and they thought I was like the queen for a night, because it was like having my picture taken with Robert Redford or something. He was like this movie star that everybody loved, which I was like, oh yeah. But that's one of my favorite is those Shogun type movie. Well, of course I've read the book, and of course, but I just love those Shogun type movies, because it reminds me of seeing him in, with his outfit on and his sword and all that stuff. It was fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
Oh, it's
Hey, folks, I got to go. Dinner's ready.
Oh, sorry.
all
No,
right.
that's all right.
All
right.
right.
Yep.
See you
See you
Okay.
next week.
See you guys. See you next week.
next week.
Charades.